I was 27 years old when I finally understood that some fractures run deeper than bone. The kitchen clock read 3:47 a.m., and my hands were raw from scrubbing the crusted barbecue sauce off plates that my sister Jess had left scattered across the counter like landmines. The smell of stale beer and her expensive perfume still hung in the air, a nauseating combination that had become the signature scent of our Cleveland home. My shift at the Amazon warehouse had ended only an hour ago, and my feet throbbed in a way that made me wonder if standing on concrete for 10 hours straight was slowly turning my bones to dust. But there was no time to rest. The kitchen was a disaster, and I knew Mom would blame me if she came down to find it like this in the morning. The front door slammed open with enough force to rattle the cheap picture frames on the wall. Jess burst in, her heels clicking against the linoleum like gunshots. She threw the keys to Mom's car onto the table where I had just wiped, leaving a scratch I knew I would somehow be held responsible for. She was 29 but carried herself with the careless arrogance of someone who had never faced a real consequence. The vodka and designer perfume cloud intensified as she passed me without a glance. Mom appeared at the top of the stairs in her bathrobe before Jess had even made it to the living room. Her face was tight with concern, but only for one daughter. She rushed down and immediately wrapped Jess in a hug, asking rapid-fire questions about the interview she claimed to have had. I stood there with dishwater still dripping from my fingers, invisible as always. Jess smirked at me over Mom's shoulder. Her lipstick was smudged, and her carefully constructed facade was slipping. She had not been at any interview. We both knew it. But Mom chose to believe, just like she always did. "Still packing boxes for Fat Bezos, Chloe?" Jess said, her voice dripping with mock sympathy. She pulled away from Mom and sauntered to the fridge, helping herself to the leftovers I had carefully saved for my lunches that week. Mom patted Jess on the shoulder. "She is looking for a position that matches her talents," she said, as if Jess had just come back from a job fair instead of whatever bar she had actually spent the evening in. "You know how competitive the market is." I bit my tongue until I tasted copper. Competitive. Right. As if Jess had ever competed for anything in her life that was not handed to her on a silver platter. I turned back to the sink, my jaw clenched so tight I thought my teeth might crack. The next morning came too quickly. I woke to my alarm at 6 a.m. after barely 3 hours of sleep. My body ached in places I did not know could ache. The warehouse job was supposed to be temporary, just until I finished my data analytics certification from the community college. But temporary had stretched into 2 years because every time I saved enough to cut back my hours, some emergency would arise. Mom's car would need repairs. The water heater would break. Jess would have a crisis that required immediate financial intervention. I dragged myself out of bed and looked at the small desk in the corner of my room where my laptop sat, covered in a thin layer of dust. I had not opened it in 3 days. My online coursework was falling behind. The final project that could lead to actual job interviews was due in 2 weeks, and I had barely started. How was I supposed to build data visualizations and write analysis reports when I could barely keep my eyes open? In the kitchen, Mom was making French toast. The good kind, with powdered sugar and fresh strawberries. My stomach growled. I had not eaten dinner the night before, too exhausted after my shift to do more than drink a glass of water before passing out. "Morning, sweetie," Mom said without looking up. "This is for Jess. She has a big day today." I opened the cabinet to grab the generic cereal I bought with my own money. The box was nearly empty. I had just bought it 3 days ago. "Did someone eat my cereal?" I asked, trying to keep my voice neutral. "Oh!" Jess ran out of her granola, Mom said, flipping the French toast. "She needed something quick yesterday. You do not mind sharing, do you?" I minded. I minded so much that my hands shook as I poured the last handful of cereal into a bowl, but I said nothing because I had learned years ago that minding was selfish. That asking for basic consideration was asking too much. Jess appeared in the doorway wearing a designer blouse I had never seen before. It still had the tags on it, dangling from the collar. She sat down at the table, and Mom placed the plate of French toast in front of her like an offering to royalty. "Looking good, baby," Mom said, beaming. "Is this for the interview at that marketing firm?" Jess nodded, her mouth already full. Through a spray of powdered sugar, she said, "They are really interested in my portfolio. The creative director said my aesthetic is exactly what they need." I knew there was no portfolio. I knew because 2 months ago, I had caught Jess trying to download my class projects to pass off as her own work. She had laughed when I confronted her, said I was being dramatic. Mom had sided with her, said I should be flattered that my sister thought my work was good enough to showcase. That had been the moment I realized I needed to get out. Not eventually, not someday, soon. I finished my cereal in silence while Mom and Jess chatted about the fictional job opportunity. Then I grabbed my warehouse vest and headed for the door. "Chloe," Mom called after me. "Can you pick up groceries on your way home? I am making a special dinner tonight." I paused with my hand on the doorknob. My shift ended at 6 p.m. The grocery store was 20 minutes in the opposite direction of home. I would not get back until almost 8 p.m., and I still had coursework to do. "Sure," I said, because what else could I say? I made a list, Mom continued. It is on the counter. And can you get the expensive steaks? Jess has been so stressed with job hunting. I looked at the list. The total would be at least $200. My last paycheck had been $583 after taxes. My portion of the rent was $300. I had exactly $72 left until next Friday. Mom, I started, but she had already turned back to Jess, refilling her orange juice and asking about what she planned to wear to the interview. I took the list and left. The warehouse shift was brutal. We were short-staffed because of flu season, which meant picking up the slack for 3 missing workers. My supervisor, a perpetually angry man named Rick, spent the entire day breathing down my neck about productivity metrics. I lifted boxes until my arms felt like they might fall off. I scanned items until the barcode reader beeped in my dreams. During my 15-minute break, I sat in my car and cried from exhaustion. On the drive to the grocery store, I did the math in my head. If I bought the groceries Mom wanted, I would have to skip my next therapy appointment. I had been seeing Dr. Reeves for 6 months, paying out of pocket because our insurance did not cover mental health. It was the one thing I did purely for myself, and it was already in jeopardy. I sat in the grocery store parking lot for 20 minutes, staring at the list. Expensive steaks. Imported cheese. The wine Jess liked. Organic vegetables that would probably go bad in the crisper drawer because no one except me ever cooked. I bought everything on the list. When the cashier told me the total was $247, I used my credit card. The one I had been trying to pay down for a year. The one that charged 23% interest. When I got home at 8:15 p.m., carrying 6 bags of groceries, the house was dark except for the living room TV. Jess was sprawled on the couch in sweatpants, scrolling through her phone. The designer blouse was thrown over a chair. How was the interview? I asked, setting the bags down. Jess did not look up. Rescheduled. I waited for more explanation. None came. I started unpacking the groceries, putting away the expensive items that had just cost me $247 and my therapy appointment. Mom came downstairs in her yoga pants. Oh good, you are back, she said. I decided we are going to do the special dinner tomorrow instead. Jess is tired today. I stood there holding a package of $20 steaks, feeling something crack inside my chest. Tomorrow I worked a double shift. I would be gone from 6 a.m. to midnight. I will not be here tomorrow, I said quietly. I am working late. Mom frowned. Can you switch shifts? No, I said. I need the hours. She sighed like I was being deliberately difficult. Well, I guess we will do it this weekend then. That weekend, I spent Saturday morning cleaning the entire house because Mom had decided to throw a barbecue. She did not ask if I wanted to host a party. She did not ask if I had plans. She simply announced on Friday night that we would be having people over, and I needed to make sure the house was presentable. I scrubbed bathrooms. I vacuumed. I dusted furniture that had not been touched in months. Jess stayed in her room, doing her nails and posting Instagram stories about self-care Saturdays. Mom went to get her hair done. By the time I finished cleaning, it was noon and I had 4 hours until guests arrived. I still needed to prep the food. I pulled out the steaks I had bought, along with chicken breasts, hot dogs for the kids, and all the fixings for potato salad and coleslaw. My hands were shaking from low blood sugar. I had not eaten anything except coffee since 6 a.m. Chloe, can you run to the store? Mom called from upstairs. I forgot to get hamburger buns. I closed my eyes and counted to 10, then 20, then 30. When I got back from the store with the buns, Jess was in the kitchen eating the potato salad I had spent an hour making. That is for the party, I said, trying to keep my voice level. She shrugged. I was hungry. Make more. There was no time to make more. Guests were arriving in 2 hours. I stretched what was left with extra mayonnaise and hoped no one would notice. The Hendersons arrived first, with their twin boys who immediately started running through the house. Then the Kowalskis, bringing a store-bought pie and gossip about the neighbors on Maple Street. Mom played hostess, laughing and telling stories about her successful daughters. She gestured to Jess, who looked polished and perfect, and mentioned several fictional job prospects. She did not mention me at all, even though I was the one manning the grill, serving drinks, and making sure everyone had what they needed. I watched it all from behind the smoke of the barbecue, feeling more and more invisible. This was my life. This had always been my life. The worker bee in the background while Jess got to play queen bee, Mrs. Henderson approached me at one point, her face kind. Your mother tells me you are working at Amazon, she said. That is wonderful. They are a good company. I am just in the warehouse, I said, flipping a burger. It is temporary while I finish my certification. Oh, what are you studying? Data analytics. Her eyes lit up. My nephew works in that field. It is very lucrative. Good for you for investing in your education. It was such a small kindness, such basic acknowledgement of my efforts, that I felt tears prick my eyes. I blinked them away quickly. Thank you, I managed. By 4 p.m., I had been on my feet for 10 hours. The earlier house cleaning combined with the party prep and now the actual hosting had drained every ounce of energy I had. But there was still more food to cook, more drinks to serve, more small talk to facilitate. I was pulling a fresh batch of chicken off the grill when I made my decision. Maybe it was exhaustion, maybe it was Mrs. Henderson's kindness reminding me that there was a world outside this house where people valued competence and effort. Maybe it was just that I could not take one more day of being invisible. I set down the tongs and walked to the picnic table where everyone was gathered. Mom was in the middle of a story about Jess's supposed interview at a tech startup. Jess was nodding along, adding fake details about office culture and equity packages. "I have some news," I said, cutting into the conversation. Everyone turned to look at me. Mom's smile froze. Jess's eyes narrowed. "I got accepted for a data analyst position in Austin," I continued, my voice stronger than I expected. "I am moving next month. The salary is $68,000 a year plus benefits." Mrs. Henderson gasped with delight. "Chloe, that is wonderful!" But her enthusiasm was drowned out by the silence from my family. Mom's face had gone pale, then red, then settled into something cold and hard. Jess was staring at me like I had just announced I was joining a cult. "Who is going to take care of this house?" Mom asked, her voice cutting through the congratulations from the neighbors. The question hung in the air. Not who will help with the house, who will take care of it? As if the entire structure would collapse without me there to hold it up. Jess started laughing. It was sharp and cruel. "Austin?" she said loudly enough for everyone to hear. "You think you are what, some tech bro now? You have not even paid off your community college debt. What did you study? How to scan packages faster?" Some of the neighbors laughed uncomfortably. Mr. Kowalski shifted in his seat. I felt my face burn with humiliation, but underneath the embarrassment was something else. Anger. Real, genuine anger that had been building for years. "At least I am earning my own money and building a future," I said. The words came out before I could stop them. "What are you doing besides spending Mom's money and lying about jobs that do not exist?" The backyard went completely silent. Even the Henderson twins stopped running. I had violated the unspoken rule. I had told the truth in front of witnesses. Jess's face transformed. The fake smile melted away, replaced by pure rage. Her beer bottle slipped from her fingers, hitting the grass with a dull thud. Foam spread across the lawn like blood from a wound. "What did you just say?" Her voice was low and dangerous. Every eye was on us now. Mom stood up, her face tight. "Chloe, that is enough." But I was not done. I had started this and I was going to finish it. I stood up from the grill, facing my sister across the yard. I said the truth. "You have not worked in 3 years. You have 2 DUI arrests that Mom paid to have sealed. You got fired from the law firm for stealing client information. And every single job interview you claim to have, they do not exist." I checked. Those 2 words were the bridge I burned, because they meant this was not a heat-of-the-moment outburst. This was premeditated. This was me gathering evidence. This was me preparing for war. Jess's eyes went wild. She looked at Mom, who was staring at me with an expression I had never seen before. Betrayal, as if I was the one who had been lying all along. "You little bitch," Jess hissed. She moved so fast I did not have time to react. One moment she was standing by the table, the next she was charging at me. Her hands hit my chest with enough force to lift me off my feet. I stumbled backward, my arms flailing. The edge of the brick barbecue pit caught my fall. Pain exploded through my left arm like lightning. There was a crack that I felt more than heard, a sensation of something fundamental breaking. I screamed. The sound tore out of me, raw and animal. I crumpled to the ground, my arm twisted at an angle that arms should not twist. White-hot agony radiated from my wrist up to my shoulder. Through the haze of pain, I heard gasps, chairs scraping, footsteps. But the footsteps were not coming toward me. "Oh God, everyone, it is fine," Mom's voice was saying, high and false. "Chloe has always been so clumsy. She trips over her own feet all the time. Just last week she fell down the stairs. I was still on the ground, cradling my arm, tears streaming down my face. Mrs. Henderson was moving toward me, but Mom stepped in her path. "She is fine, really. Just dramatic. We will take care of it." I looked up at my mother through a curtain of pain and tears. She was not looking at me. She was looking at the neighbors, at the Hendersons and Kowalskis, managing their perception, protecting Jess, protecting the family image. "Mr. Kowalski cleared his throat. "Maybe we should call an ambulance." "No need," Mom said firmly. "I will take her to urgent care if she needs it. Thank you all for coming. I think we need to end the party early." The neighbors gathered their things quickly, uncomfortable and eager to escape. Mrs. Henderson squeezed my shoulder as she passed. "If you need anything, dear," she whispered. When the last car pulled away and we were alone in the backyard, the mask dropped. Mom turned on me with fury I had never seen directed my way before. "How could you?" she hissed. "In front of everyone? You humiliated your sister." I was struggling to breathe through the pain. My arm was on fire. "I think it is broken," I managed. "You think?" Jess spat. "You know what I think?" I think you are a jealous, vindictive little rat who cannot stand to see anyone else happy. Mom was pacing, her hands pressed to her temples. Do you have any idea what you have done? The Hendersons will tell everyone. This family's reputation is ruined. My arm, I whispered again. Please, I need to go to the hospital. Mom stopped pacing and looked at me. Really looked at me. And what I saw in her eyes was not motherly concern. It was calculation. Cold, practical calculation. If we go to the hospital, they will ask questions, she said slowly. They might call the police. Do you want to destroy your sister's life? She pushed me, I said, my voice breaking. She broke my arm. Mom knelt down next to me, close enough that I could smell her perfume. Listen to me very carefully. Jess has a date with Ethan Chen next week. He is a successful real estate investor. This could be her chance at a real future. Do you understand what I am saying? I stared at her, not understanding. My arm was broken. I was in agony. And she was talking about Jess's dating life. If you report this, if you make any kind of fuss, you will ruin everything for her. Jess has been through so much. The DUIs were mistakes. The job situation is just bad timing. She deserves a chance at happiness. Can you please, for once in your life, think about someone other than yourself? The words hit me harder than Jess's shove. I was the selfish one. I was the problem. Not the sister who had just physically assaulted me. Not the mother who was asking me to cover it up. Mom stood and walked over to Jess, who was still breathing hard, her fists clenched. She poured 2 glasses of wine from the bottle on the table and handed one to Jess. To family, Mom said, raising her glass. We have to protect each other. They clinked glasses. I watched from the ground, my broken arm throbbing with every heartbeat. This was my family. This was what I meant to them. A problem to be managed. An inconvenience to be silenced. I will drive myself, I said quietly. Mom did not argue. She went inside with Jess, leaving me alone in the backyard with the remains of the party scattered around me. I used my good arm to push myself up. The world tilted and spun. I thought I might throw up from the pain. I made it to my car somehow. The drive to urgent care was a blur. Every bump in the road sent fresh waves of agony through my arm. I kept the windows down, the cold air helping me stay conscious. The urgent care center was nearly empty on a Saturday evening. A nurse took one look at my arm and ushered me back immediately. What happened, honey? She asked gently as she helped me onto the examination table. I fell, I said automatically. Down the stairs. She paused, her hand hovering over her clipboard. Her eyes searched my face. When did this happen? About an hour ago. Were you alone when you fell? The question hung between us. I knew what she was really asking. I knew I could tell her the truth right now, but Mom's words echoed in my head. You will ruin everything. Think about someone other than yourself. Yes, I lied. I was alone. The nurse made a note on her chart. I saw her write something, but I could not read it from my angle. Later, I would request my medical records and see what she had written. Patient hesitant when explaining cause of injury. Mechanism does not match presentation. Possible domestic violence. The X-rays confirmed a fractured radius. Clean break, the doctor said. Which was good news. They put me in a splint and gave me a prescription for pain medication I could not afford. The total bill was $873. I put it on the same credit card I had used for the groceries. It was almost 10 p.m. when I got home. The house was quiet. I could hear the TV in Mom's room upstairs. Jess's door was closed, music playing softly behind it. I went to my room and closed the door. I did not cry. I was too tired to cry. I just sat on my bed, staring at the splint on my arm, feeling something inside me harden into resolve. This could not be my life anymore. I would not let it be my life anymore. The next week was a special kind of hell. My warehouse supervisor was not sympathetic about my broken arm. Can you still work? Was all he asked. I said yes because I needed the money. They put me on quality control, standing in one spot for 8 hours checking items for damage. It was mind-numbing work that left me too much time to think. At home, Jess treated my injury like a joke. Nice accessory, she said the first time she saw me after the barbecue. Very pathetic chic. You should start a trend. Mom acted like nothing had happened. She asked me to help with dinner that night, seemingly oblivious to the fact that I only had one working hand. When I struggled to chop vegetables, she sighed with impatience. Just do your best, she said, as if my broken arm was a minor inconvenience I was choosing to exaggerate. 3 days after the barbecue, Mom assigned me a new task. The attic storage room needed to be cleaned out. We have too much junk up there, she said. Go through everything and make piles for donation. It was busy work, the kind of task she gave me when she wanted me occupied and out of sight. I climbed the narrow attic stairs, my splinted arm making everything awkward. The storage room was hot and dusty, filled with boxes of old decorations, broken furniture, and forgotten belongings. I started sorting mechanically, my mind elsewhere. I was thinking about Austin, about the job that was supposed to start in 3 weeks. I had not told them about my arm yet. I was terrified they would rescind the offer if they knew I was injured. That was when I dropped the box. I had been reaching for an old lamp on a high shelf, standing on my toes, when my good hand slipped. The box tumbled down, hitting the floor with a crash. The lid came off and papers scattered everywhere. At first, I thought they were old bills or tax documents, but then I saw the handwriting. Careful, slanted letters on lined notebook paper. Addressed to me. I picked up the nearest envelope with shaking hands. The return address was from Kentucky. Paducah, Kentucky. The name in the corner made my breath catch in my throat. David Mitchell. My father. I sank to the floor, surrounded by scattered papers, and opened the first letter. It was dated 8 years ago, right after my 19th birthday. Dear Chloe, I hope this letter finds you well and happy. I wanted to reach out on your birthday. 19 is such an important age, the threshold of real adulthood, and I wish I could be there to celebrate with you. I think about you every day. I wonder what you are studying, what you are interested in, what makes you laugh. I know your mother and I did not end well, but that has never changed how much I love you. If you ever want to talk, I am here. You can call me anytime. You can write. You can show up at my door at 3 a.m. and I will make you pancakes. I am your father, and I will always be your father. Love always, Dad. My hands were shaking so badly I almost dropped the letter. I read it again. Then again. Each word felt like a punch to the stomach. I picked up another envelope. This one had a birthday card inside, the kind you buy at Hallmark with generic messages about growing up. But inside was a handwritten note and 2 crisp $50 bills. Happy 20th birthday, sweetheart. I hope you are doing something fun to celebrate. Buy yourself something nice. Love, Dad. Another envelope. Another birthday card with cash. Happy 21st. The big one. I wish I could take you out for your first legal drink. Happy 22nd. I still remember the day you were born. Happy 23rd. Another year older and I bet more beautiful and brilliant than ever. I had never received a single one of these cards. I had never seen a penny of this money. My chest felt tight. I could not breathe properly. I kept digging through the pile, finding more letters, more cards, more evidence of a father who had not abandoned me. There were Christmas cards. Thinking of you this holiday season? I hope you are warm and happy. Postcards from vacation spots. Saw this and thought of you. Remember when we went to the beach that summer? You were so small you were afraid of the waves. Letters asking about school. How are your classes going? Are you enjoying college? What are you majoring in? I always thought you would be good at anything you set your mind to. Each one was a knife twisting deeper, because I had thought he left. Mom had told me he left. When I was 10 years old and crying because Dad was not coming home anymore, Mom had sat me down and explained that he did not want to be a father, that the responsibility was too much for him, that some men just were not meant for family life. I believed her. I had spent 17 years believing her. But here was the proof that she had lied. Dozens of letters, all returned to sender. I could see where she had written "return to sender" in angry red ink. Some envelopes had notes scrawled on them. Stop contacting her. She does not want to hear from you. Leave us alone. I found photocopies of child support checks. Every single one had been returned with a note attached. A note in Mom's handwriting. We do not need your money. Keep your guilt payments. You gave up your rights to help. But we did need money. We always needed money. I thought about all the times Mom claimed we could not afford things. All the times I went without because she said we were stretched too thin. All the while, she was sending back checks that could have helped. The last letter was dated 3 years ago. The envelope was wrinkled like it had been handled many times. Chloe, I do not know if you are reading these letters or if your mother is still returning them unopened. I am going to assume you have made the choice not to respond, and I respect that. If you need space from me, I will give you that space. But I want you to know that I will always be here if you need me. My door is always open. My phone is always on. I do not care if it has been 3 years or 30 years. You are my daughter and I love you. That will never change. If you ever change your mind, I am here. Your dad, David. I sat in that attic for 2 hours, reading and rereading every letter. My father had not left me. He had been ripped away. Systematically, deliberately. Mom had stolen him from me and made me believe it was his choice. This hurt worse than the broken arm. This was a different kind of fracture, one that went all the way down to the foundation of who I thought I was. I had built my identity around being the daughter whose father did not want her. The one who was not worth staying for, and it was all a lie. When I finally went downstairs, it was after midnight. The house was quiet. I put the box of letters in my closet, hiding them under a pile of clothes. I did not know what I was going to do with this information yet, but I knew something had shifted. A door had opened that Mom had spent 17 years keeping locked. The next day I called in sick to work. I could not face the warehouse, the scanning, the pretending everything was normal. Instead, I spent the day researching. I looked up my father on social media. Facebook showed me a profile with limited privacy settings. David Mitchell, still in Paducah. Relationship status: in a relationship with Marie Brennan. His profile picture showed him with a woman about his age, both of them smiling at a restaurant somewhere. He looked older than I remembered. More gray in his hair, lines around his eyes, but he looked happy. That was what struck me most. He looked genuinely, peacefully happy. I scrolled through his public posts. Photos of him and Marie at a Waffle House, both holding coffee mugs. A shared article about data privacy with the caption, "Important stuff here." A check-in at a community theater showing of our town. His life was simple and ordinary, and nothing like the deadbeat portrait Mom had painted. Marie Brennan's profile was more open. Her bio said she was an elementary school teacher. Her photos showed a kind face, lots of pictures with kids, and several with my father. In one photo from 2 months ago, she had tagged him, "Best brunch partner a girl could ask for." He had commented with a heart emoji. He had moved on. He had built a life without me because he thought I did not want him in mine. That night, I could not sleep. I lay in bed, my broken arm throbbing, thinking about the letters, thinking about my father in Kentucky living his quiet life, thinking about Mom and Jess downstairs, probably discussing Jess's upcoming date with Ethan Chen. Ethan Chen, the real estate investor, Jess's big chance at landing a wealthy husband. I got out of bed and opened my laptop. It took me less than 5 minutes to find information about Ethan. His real estate firm had a professional website. He had a LinkedIn profile that screamed successful and serious. 28 years old, MBA from Ohio State, multiple awards for young professionals. His bio mentioned community involvement and family values. Jess was planning to lie to him. I knew this because I had overheard her practicing her story with Mom. She was going to tell him she was an interior designer for Thompson & Associates, a respected firm in downtown Cleveland. She was going to pretend to have a career, a professional reputation, a life that did not exist. I looked at my broken arm, still in its splint. I thought about Mom telling me to stay quiet to protect Jess's future. I thought about 17 years of lies about my father. Something cold and hard settled in my chest. A decision, a line in the sand. If Mom could lie to protect Jess, I could tell the truth to protect someone else. Ethan Chen deserved to know who he was dating, and Jess deserved to face actual consequences for once in her entitled life. I created a new email account. The username was random letters and numbers, nothing traceable to me. I found Ethan's business email on his company website. Then I sat at my desk, my fingers hovering over the keyboard. What I was about to do was calculated. It was cold. It was revenge. I started typing. "Mr. Chen, you do not know me, but I feel compelled to reach out regarding someone you are currently seeing. Jessica Harper has represented herself as an interior designer for Thompson & Associates. This is false. She has never worked for this company. You may want to ask her about her 2 DUI arrests in Ohio and why she was terminated from her previous position at Morrison & Burke Law Firm for misappropriating client files. I am not trying to cause trouble. I simply believe you have a right to know the truth about someone before getting seriously involved. I wish you the best." I read it 3 times, changed a few words. Made it sound concerned rather than vengeful. Then, before I could change my mind, I hit send. The email left my outbox at 2:47 a.m. I closed my laptop and climbed back into bed. My arm was still throbbing, my heart was racing, but for the first time in weeks, I felt something other than helpless. I felt powerful. 4 days later, everything fell apart for Jess in spectacular fashion. I was in my room after work, trying to complete an assignment for my data analytics course with one hand, when I heard Jess's phone ring downstairs. Her voice floated up through the vents, bright and flirty. "Ethan, hi. I have been looking forward to hearing from you." There was a pause. Then her voice changed. The brightness evaporated. "What?" "No, that is not true. Who told you that?" Another pause, longer this time. "Ethan, I can explain. Those arrest records are sealed. How did you even find out about that?" I pressed my ear against the heating vent, barely breathing. I could hear the tinny sound of a male voice on the other end, stern and clipped. "No, I never worked at Thompson & Associates. I mean, I consulted for them. It was freelance work. That is basically the same thing, right?" The voice on the other end got louder. I could not make out words, but the tone was clear. Angry. Disgusted. "Ethan, please. Someone is spreading lies about me. This is character assassination. Don't you see? Someone is trying to sabotage us, because they are jealous." There was a long silence. Then Jess's voice cracked. Fine. If you are going to believe some anonymous email over me, then we are done. I don't need this. I don't need you." The sound of her phone hitting the wall made me jump. The crash was followed by Jess screaming, a wordless sound of pure rage. Her footsteps pounded up the stairs. My door flew open before I could move away from the vent. "You," she hissed, her face blotchy and red. "You did this." I sat at my desk, trying to look confused. "I don't know what you're talking about. Don't give me that innocent act." Ethan got an email. Someone told him about my DUIs. Someone told him about the law firm. The only person who would do that is you. Why would I do that? I asked, keeping my voice steady even though my heart was hammering. I don't even know Ethan. You're lying, Jess shrieked. You're a jealous, spiteful little bitch who can't stand to see me happy. Mom's footsteps thundered up the stairs. What is going on? What's all this noise? Jess whirled on her. She ruined everything. My relationship with Ethan is over because this psycho sent him an email about my past. Mom's face went through a rapid series of changes. Confusion, understanding, and then fury. She turned to me slowly. Chloe, did you contact Jess's boyfriend? No, I lied smoothly. I don't even know how I would do that. I've been working and trying to keep up with my classes with one arm. I haven't had time to stalk Jess's love life. You're lying, Jess said, but there was uncertainty in her voice now. She had no proof. It was just suspicion. Even if someone did send him an email, I said carefully, wouldn't that person be doing him a favor? Shouldn't he know the truth about who he's dating? The truth? Mom's voice was ice. The truth is that your sister made some mistakes years ago. Everyone deserves a second chance. Everyone deserves privacy. And I deserve to not get my arm broken, I shot back. But we all know how that worked out. The room went silent. This was the first time I had mentioned the assault since it happened. The first time I had named it for what it was. That was an accident, Mom said, but her voice wavered slightly. You startled Jess. She didn't mean to push you that hard. I stood up, my chair scraping against the floor. I walked to my closet and pulled out the box of letters. I had been keeping them hidden, waiting for the right moment. This felt like the right moment. I found these in the attic, I said, dumping the contents onto my bed. Letters, birthday cards, checks, all from Dad, all returned by you. Mom's face went pale. Where did you get those? The attic, where you told me to clean. I looked at the pile of evidence, years of lies spilled across my bedspread. You told me he left. You told me he didn't want to be a father. But he wrote to me for years. He sent money, he sent birthday cards with cash inside, and you sent everything back. Those were my decisions to make, Mom said, but her voice was shaking now. I was protecting you. From what? From having a father who loved me? I picked up one of the letters. He says he'll always be there if I need him. He says I can show up at his door at 3 a.m. and he'll make me pancakes. Does that sound like a man who abandoned his daughter? He left me, Mom said, her voice rising. He left this family. I wasn't going to let him waltz back in and play part-time dad whenever it was convenient for him. So you made the choice for me. You stole 17 years of having a father because you were angry at him. Jess was watching this exchange like a tennis match, her earlier fury temporarily forgotten. Mom looked at me, really looked at me, and I saw something I had never seen before. Fear. She was afraid of losing control. Chloe, honey, she said, switching tactics. Her voice went soft, manipulative. I know you're upset. Your arm, the job stress, it's all overwhelming. But this isn't the time to make rash decisions. Let's sit down and talk about this calmly. There's nothing to talk about, I said. I'm leaving for Austin in 2 weeks like I planned. And I'm going to contact my father, the father you kept from me. If you walk out that door, Mom said, her voice hardening again, don't expect to come back. This family sticks together. If you choose him over us, you're choosing to be alone. I looked at her, then at Jess, then at the box of letters on my bed. I thought about the last decade of my life. The sacrificing, the working, the being invisible. The broken arm that everyone pretended was my own clumsiness, the grocery bills and the therapy appointments I couldn't afford, and the constant, grinding exhaustion of being the family workhorse. You're right, I said quietly. This family does stick together. You and Jess, you stick together and you always have. I was never really part of this family. I was just the maid who helped pay the bills. Don't be dramatic, Mom said. I'm not. I'm being honest. Finally, I started gathering the letters, putting them carefully back in the box. I'm going to Kentucky next weekend. I'm going to meet my father. And then I'm moving to Austin. You can decide whether you want to be part of my life after that, but it's going to be on my terms. Over my dead body, Jess said. You're not going anywhere. Watch me. I walked past both of them, the box of letters clutched to my chest with my good arm. I went downstairs, got in my car, and drove. I didn't have a plan. I just needed to be away from that house, away from their voices, away from the suffocating weight of their expectations. I ended up at a 24-hour diner on the edge of town, sitting in a corner booth with terrible coffee and a stack of my father's letters. I read them again, slowly this time, looking for clues about who he was, what his life was like, whether he would even want to see me after all this time. At 2 a.m., I pulled out my phone. I had found his number on his Facebook profile days ago. I had been too scared to call. But sitting in that diner, with my broken arm throbbing and my entire life in upheaval, I couldn't think of a reason to wait anymore. My finger hovered over the call button for a full minute. Then I pressed it. The phone rang once, twice, 3 times. I was about to hang up when a sleepy male voice answered. Hello? My throat closed up. I couldn't speak. Hello, is anyone there? Dad. The word came out as barely a whisper. There was a long pause. Then, who is this? It's Chloe. Your daughter. Another pause, longer this time. I could hear him breathing, could almost feel the shock radiating through the phone line. Chloe? His voice cracked on my name. Is this really you? Yes. I'm sorry for calling so late. I found your letters. All of them. I didn't know you had been writing. Mom never told me. Oh God. Oh my God. He was crying. I could hear it in his voice. Sweetheart, I've been trying to reach you for so long. I thought you didn't want to hear from me. I didn't know, I said. And then I was crying too. She told me you left, that you didn't want to be a father anymore. That's not true. That was never true. I have thought about you every single day for 17 years. We talked until the sun came up. He told me about the custody battle that Mom had won by lying to the judge. He told me about the child support she kept refusing. He told me about moving to Kentucky to be closer to Marie, but never moving on from the daughter he wasn't allowed to see. I told him about my life, the warehouse job, the data analytics certification, the broken arm, everything. Come here, he said when I finished. Come to Kentucky. Today. Right now. You can stay with us while you figure things out. I have a job. My warehouse shifts. Quit. I'll help you. You're my daughter and you need help, so I'm going to help you. That's what fathers do. It was such a simple statement, but it shattered something inside me. That's what fathers do. As if it was the most natural thing in the world. As if supporting your child wasn't a burden but a privilege. I'll come this weekend, I said. I need to handle a few things first. Okay. But Chloe, I'm here now. Whatever you need, whenever you need it. I'm here. When I got back to the house Friday morning, Mom and Jess were waiting in the living room like a tribunal. Mom's face was set in hard lines. We need to talk about your behavior, she started. No, I interrupted. We need to talk about the assault, the one you covered up, the one you told me to keep quiet about so I wouldn't ruin Jess's future. Mom's expression flickered. That's not how it happened. I pulled out my phone. I had screenshot the text message she sent me the night of the barbecue, the one telling me not to make a scene. I held it up. This is evidence of obstruction of justice, I said calmly. I've been reading about it. You can get in serious legal trouble for telling someone not to report a crime. You wouldn't dare, Jess said, but she looked nervous now. Try me, I said. I'm done protecting you. I'm done sacrificing myself for this family. I'm going to Kentucky this weekend to see my father. When I get back, I'm contacting a lawyer. Mom stood up. If you do this, you're dead to us. Dead. Do you understand? I understand perfectly, I said. You're telling me that unless I continue to let myself be used and abused, I don't have a family. So I guess I don't have a family. The drive to Kentucky the next day was long and surreal. 6 hours of flat Ohio farmland giving way to rolling Kentucky hills. I had told my warehouse supervisor I was quitting, effective immediately. He had barely blinked. Workers came and went all the time. I was just another number. My father's address led me to a small house in a quiet neighborhood in Paducah. It had a neat front lawn and flowers in the garden. Before I could even get out of my car, the front door opened and he came out. He was older, grayer. But his eyes were the same eyes I remembered from childhood. He stood on the porch like he was afraid I might disappear if he moved too fast. I got out of the car. We stared at each other across the yard. Then he smiled, that same gentle smile from my earliest memories, and opened his arms. I ran to him. My broken arm made it awkward, but I didn't care. I buried my face in his shoulder and cried the way I hadn't allowed myself to cry in years. He held me tight and whispered that it was okay, that I was safe now, that he had me. Marie came out a few minutes later, giving us space but making her presence known. She was exactly like her photos suggested. Warm, kind, maternal in a way my own mother had never been. You must be Chloe, she said softly. Your father has told me so much about you. We're so glad you're here. Over coffee and homemade cookies at their kitchen table, I told them everything. The full story. They listened without interrupting. When I showed them my broken arm, Dad's hands clenched into fists. When I told them about the text message from Mom, Marie shook her head in disgust. This is abuse, Dad said quietly. Physical assault. Emotional manipulation. Financial exploitation. Chloe. This is serious abuse. I know, I said. I'm going to do something about it. Do you want to press charges? Marie asked gently. I thought about it. The satisfaction of seeing Jess arrested. The vindication of having my pain acknowledged. But I also thought about the energy it would take. the court dates, the family drama. Not yet, I said. First, I want to get settled in Austin. I want to start my new job. I want to build a life that isn't defined by what they did to me. Then, maybe I'll pursue legal action. That's fair, Dad said. But know that whatever you decide, we support you. And if you need money for a lawyer, I'll help. Over the next 3 weeks, living with Dad and Marie changed everything. They treated me like an adult with agency and opinions. They asked about my day and actually listened to the answers. Marie helped me practice my data analytics skills, using her teaching experience to break down complex concepts. Dad drove me to follow-up appointments for my arm and never once complained about the time or inconvenience. I felt like I was learning what family was supposed to feel like. But I couldn't stop thinking about Mom and Jess. About the text message. About the pattern of abuse that had defined my entire life. One night, I was talking to Dr. Reeves on a video call and she brought it up directly. You need to consider your legal options seriously, she said. Not just for yourself, but for the next person Jess might hurt. People who assault others without consequences usually escalate. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about Jess's hands on my chest, the force of the shove, the crack of bone. I thought about Mom's cold calculation, the way she had turned to the neighbors and lied without hesitation. The next morning, I called a lawyer. Her name was Patricia Chen, and Dad had gotten her contact information from a friend. She specialized in family law and assault cases. Tell me everything, she said. So I did. I told her about the barbecue, the assault, the hospital visit, the nurse's notes, and most importantly, the text message from Mom. She listened carefully, occasionally making notes. When I finished, she was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "You have a strong case. The medical records, the nurse's documentation of your hesitation, and especially that text message, it's powerful evidence. Your mother essentially confessed to obstruction of justice in writing. What are my options? We can file criminal charges against your sister for assault in the second degree. With the evidence you have, the prosecutor would likely accept the case. As for your mother, the obstruction is trickier, but we can include that in the report. Will this ruin Jess's life?" Patricia looked at me steadily. "Your sister broke your arm and faced no consequences. Your mother covered it up and faced no consequences. The question isn't whether this will ruin their lives. The question is whether you're willing to continue letting them ruin yours." I filed the police report the next day. The process was both easier and harder than I expected. The detective assigned to my case was a woman in her 40s named Detective Morrison. She looked at my medical records, read the nurse's notes, and examined the screenshot of Mom's text message. Her face got harder with each piece of evidence. "This is clear-cut assault and obstruction," she said. "I'm going to recommend charges." Within a week, a warrant was issued for Jess's arrest. I wasn't there when the police showed up at the Cleveland house. Dad told me later that he heard from an old neighbor that Jess had screamed and cried and insisted it was all a misunderstanding. That Mom had threatened to sue everyone involved. That the whole neighborhood had watched as Jess was put in handcuffs and taken away. Part of me felt guilty. A small part, trained by years of being told to put family first. But the larger part felt relief. Finally, someone was holding Jess accountable. Jess's lawyer tried to get her to fight the charges. But Patricia was right, the evidence was overwhelming. The medical records matched my testimony perfectly. The nurse's documentation showed that medical professionals had suspected abuse at the time. And that text message from Mom was the nail in the coffin. Her lawyer eventually convinced her to take a plea deal. She pleaded guilty to assault in the second degree. The judge sentenced her to a suspended sentence, meaning she wouldn't go to jail as long as she completed 150 hours of community service and attended mandatory anger management classes. She would have a criminal record. The conviction couldn't be sealed or expunged for assault. For someone like Jess, whose entire identity revolved around maintaining a perfect image and marrying into wealth, this was catastrophic. The criminal record meant background checks would forever show her conviction. The wealthy men she chased would disappear when they Googled her name. The social climbing she'd dedicated her life to was over. Mom wasn't charged criminally for the obstruction. The prosecutor decided it wasn't worth pursuing, but the text message became part of public court record. Anyone could read it. Anyone could see how she had prioritized Jess's dating life over my broken arm. The whispers in the neighborhood started immediately. I heard through Dad's contacts that the book club had stopped inviting Mom. That the Hendersons had stopped speaking to her. That someone had spray-painted child abuser on their garage door before Mom scrubbed it off in the middle of the night. The perfect family image she'd spent decades building was destroyed, and I had done it by simply telling the truth. Meanwhile, in Austin, my life was blooming. The job was everything I'd hoped. My coworkers respected my skills. My manager praised my work and gave me increasingly complex projects. I was good at this. Better than good. I was thriving. I found a therapist in Austin, a man named Dr. Patel who specialized in family trauma. With his help, I started unpacking decades of emotional abuse. The gaslighting, the financial exploitation, the constant message that I was valuable only for what I could provide. It hurt. God, it hurt. But it was the kind of pain that led to healing. 6 months after I moved to Austin, I met Marcus at a tech conference. He was a software engineer presenting on data visualization tools. His presentation was brilliant and funny, making complex concepts accessible. During the networking session, I worked up the courage to introduce myself. We talked for an hour about data pipelines and Python libraries. Then we talked for another hour about everything else. He asked if I wanted to get dinner. I said yes. On our third date, I told him about my family, about Jess and Mom, and the broken arm and the lawsuit. I was terrified he would run, would decide I came with too much baggage. Instead, he took my hand and told me about his own toxic family members, the uncle he'd had to cut off, the grandmother who'd called him ungrateful for setting boundaries. "You did the right thing," he said simply. "People who hurt you don't get to stay in your life just because you share DNA." Marcus got it. He understood in a way that felt rare and precious. We fell in love slowly, carefully, both of us healing from family wounds and learning what healthy love looked like. When he proposed 6 months later at Mount Bunnell, overlooking the Austin city lights, I said yes immediately. We planned a small wedding at a vineyard in the Texas Hill Country. Just the people who actually loved us. Dad cried when I asked him to walk me down the aisle. Real, happy tears. Marie cried too. Marcus's family welcomed me like I'd always been one of them. My coworkers came and celebrated with genuine warmth. Mom and Jess were not invited. I didn't send announcements. I didn't tell them the date. They simply ceased to exist in my new life. The morning of the wedding, I stood in front of the mirror in my dress. It was simple but elegant, exactly what I wanted. My hair was styled in soft waves. My makeup was natural. I looked happy. Genuinely, deeply happy. Before I left for the ceremony, I did one last thing. I had printed a photo from the rehearsal dinner me in a casual dress, standing next to Dad, both of us laughing at something Marie had said. We looked relaxed and joyful, like people who actually enjoyed each other's company. I put the photo in an envelope with no return address and no note, just the Cleveland address written in careful handwriting. Then I dropped it in a mailbox. I wanted Mom to see it. I wanted her to see my happiness, Dad's presence in my life, the family I'd rebuilt without her. I wanted her to understand exactly what she'd lost by choosing Jess's comfort over my safety. The wedding was perfect, small and intimate and filled with love. Dad walked me down the aisle and his voice cracked when he said, "Her mother and I do," during the ceremony, claiming the parent role he'd been denied for so long. Marie stood with tears streaming down her face. Marcus waited at the end of the aisle looking at me like I was the most precious thing in the world. We danced under string lights as the sun set. We cut cake and laughed with friends. We toasted to new beginnings and chosen family. Every moment felt sacred, a celebration of the life I'd fought to build. Somewhere in Cleveland, Mom was sitting alone with a photograph of a daughter who had moved on. A daughter who had found her father, built a career, married a good man, and created a life full of genuine love and respect. I imagined her in that silent house, Jess probably in her room complaining about community service, both of them stewing in the consequences of their choices. Part of me hoped it hurt. Hoped she felt even a fraction of the pain she'd caused me over the years. But mostly, I just felt free. As the evening wound down and Marcus and I prepared to leave for our honeymoon, I stood on the terrace overlooking the vineyard. Dad came to stand beside me. "You did good, kiddo," he said softly. I looked at him, this man I'd been told didn't want me, who had actually been fighting for me all along. "Thanks, Dad. I'm proud of you. Not just for getting away, but for building something beautiful out of all that pain." I leaned against his shoulder. I learned from the best. We stood there in comfortable silence, watching the last guests filter out, watching my new husband laugh with his groomsmen, watching the future unfold with possibility instead of dread. I hadn't just gotten revenge. I hadn't just escaped. I had won, not by destroying them, though their lives were certainly smaller now, defined by scandal and shame. I had won by refusing to let their abuse define me, by choosing to heal instead of staying broken, by building a life so full of genuine love and success that their absence didn't leave a hole, it left space for better things. The girl who used to scrub dishes at 3 a.m. while her sister slept and her mother played favorites felt like someone from another lifetime. That girl had been surviving. This woman, standing in her wedding dress with her father beside her and her husband waiting, was thriving. And thriving, I realized, was the best revenge of all.